the years, we've seen Nintendo re-release some of the classic Zelda titles, either through the Nintendo Classics program, where we saw Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and even in recent times, Zelda Wind Waker get re-released, as well as in physical releases in terms of seeing games like Skyward Sword get released on the Nintendo Switch. However, one game that's been absent, and feels like it's been absent for quite some time from Nintendo's re-releases, is Zelda Twilight Princess. And last year there were some rumors floating around that we would see Twilight Princess make its way to the Switch 2, and some people interpreted that as it was going to hit the Nintendo Switch 2 as an entirely new re-release, and some people interpreted that as it would be a part of the GameCube Classics program that was exclusive to the Switch 2. But yesterday was the 40th anniversary of Legend of Zelda, and we didn't really see anything. We didn't hear anything, and it still seems like Nintendo is holding Zelda Twilight Princess back from being able to be played on more modern-day Nintendo consoles. And unfortunately, the only real way to play Twilight Princess at this junction is by pulling out your old GameCube or your Wii and trying to find, especially in the GameCube case, a very expensive copy of the game to play it again, which really sucks. And in this video, I'm going to go over why I think Nintendo is going to still potentially release Twilight Princess for the Nintendo Switch 2, but why they've been pretty hush-hush and quiet on it up to this point. So let's take a look. I think one of the most frustrating aspects of Zelda Twilight Princess not hitting the Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch 2, probably at this point, if it would ever come out, it would be on the Nintendo Switch 2, is that Twilight Princess was technically updated, upgraded, and re-released for the Wii U. However, with that console's life cycle kind of ending pretty prematurely, I don't think a lot of people got the opportunity to jump into that title on that console. But the reason it's frustrating is it really should be a simple matter of pulling that game from the Wii U and bringing it to some of the conventional consoles that are out now by Nintendo. However, I understand there's obviously going to be some things that have to be changed. As I recall, the gamepad itself on the Wii U had like a integrated menu system and those sorts of things. But realistically, the game on the GameCube was played without using a touchscreen, as well as on the Wii, it was used without using a touchscreen. So it really shouldn't be a massive undertaking to essentially eliminate that and bring that to the Nintendo Switch 2. But at this junction, we've kind of heard rumblings and rumors that this game might exist or be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, but as it stands, it really hasn't taken flight just yet. And one of the things that I've realized with Nintendo is these types of things seem to happen when things are slow. I could be mistaken, but as I recall with Skyward Sword, we saw that game's HD re-release kind of happen when Nintendo wasn't really putting out a ton of different games at that time period. In other words, they used it almost as like a stopgap to get to some of their bigger titles in that time period. And so there is a potential that if we do see a Twilight Princess HD re-release for the Nintendo Switch 2, it may happen in that capacity. It may also happen in the capacity of Nintendo trying to bolster their GameCube program. And maybe, for some people, Nintendo's waiting to start to fill up that game library of GameCube games you can play on the Nintendo Switch 2, and then drop the Twilight Princess re-release as a main reason to jump onto that platform. Me personally, haven't found anything on that program or the GameCube Classics program that's been exciting enough for me to actually want to get into it just yet. But if Twilight Princess was re-released on it, I would 100% jump into that program. The other thing to consider is Nintendo may be trying to space out their Zelda releases. It seems like we've gotten some sort of new Zelda every couple of years at this point. We got in the last one being Echoes of Wisdom in 2024. So there's potential that this year, again, another couple of years, that we might see something on the Zelda front. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily we're going to see Twilight Princess, but it wouldn't be a terrible idea. What I mean is, when I was waiting for Tears of the Kingdom to come out, it felt cool that I got to jump into Skyward Sword as a bit of a stopgap to bridge me into my wait time for Tears of the Kingdom. And so there's a potential that whatever Zelda announcement that does occur, if any does occur this year, we may see Twilight Princess again as that stopgap game between Zeldas to bridge us into the next major Zelda title. So there is potential, and there's been some rumors circulating that this year, if we do see Twilight Princess get re-released, it may happen in that capacity for that reason, to kind of build that excitement for whatever the next Zelda is that's going to be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2, if there is anyone slated, which I'd be pretty surprised if there wasn't. And lastly, I've heard this rumor floating around, and I've heard that there's been some discussion that there is a Twilight Princess HD ready to go. Actually, I even heard there's a Zelda Wind Waker HD ready to go, which again, we got in the Wii U era, and that hasn't really been re-released with the exception of a GameCube port for the GameCube Classics program. And there is a potential that Nintendo may be waiting to release both these HD re-releases as almost like a Mario All-Stars sort of thing, or 3D All-Stars that we saw for the Switch. And they're simply working on tweaking the controls and making sure that everything works efficiently for the Switch 2 console. And hey, maybe there's potentially even trying to integrate some of the motion controls that we saw in the original Wii version for this HD remaster. I'm not sure, this is just speculation. But there is a potential that if we do see them, maybe we will see them as a package deal on the Nintendo Switch 2, which I myself would be incredibly excited to purchase. I purchased the Wind Waker HD back on the Wii U, and I was incredibly blown away by the upgrades and quality of life features that they added using that console. So to be able to play that again on the Nintendo Switch 2, to me would be very exciting, because to me that was the superior version between the GameCube one that was released originally. So at this junction, I don't think hope for Twilight Princess is dead on the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm leaning more towards Nintendo taking a strategy of treating it as a stopgap, and what I mean by that is, I think that whatever other major Zelda title is ready to be announced, they're going to release Twilight Princess around that same time to help rebuild or just build general excitement for that new Zelda game, kind of like they did with Skyward Sword. I was someone who went out and purchased that game pretty much immediately, even though I'd already played it on the Wii, and I was pretty mixed about it back then, and I still think it kind of sucks now. But I purchased it because I was really excited to play Tears of the Kingdom, and I decided, you know what, maybe I wasn't giving that game a fair chance, let's try it again. And so I'm wondering, and I'm speculating, but I think Nintendo may have that same strategy up their sleeve when it comes to that stopgap strategy for trying to build excitement for whatever next major mainline Zelda title is on the horizon.